It's like party invitations, specialized.
So they got to bring in paper or
Business cards.
Yeah.
Specialized business cards. We use
How much waste is it? They're in Kingston now? They're shop in Kingston?
They're over at IBM.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
It's a bad spot right now. I think they have
What's that?
Did I miss it when I was passing the water?
Thanks for having more people come in and bother me today. On Capital Secretary.
Oh, you didn't have that? I actually have some here too. It's been a fun day.
Is this the last thing we got on?
His business now.
Okay, yeah, whenever
Was, well, you had people in when you were on today?
I mean, they demolished the wheel. He's got to clean more doors and bring them to see the
Yeah, it was the one day I had all this work to do.
What's that? Oh, the soul. That's a high. That was
My daughter's my new house now, he's got 3 new rooms to my ex got one of
Didn't you go up to a science thing on that?
Bring some lemonade. Yeah, my girlfriend, her and her boys ride, she pays for them. Her husband, she had an engine on her house all the time. Never tried to do that. Oh, yeah. I'm stressed. It's just in my left eye. Yeah. I'm stressed. It's stressed. Yeah, she texted me. I went out for
Full of American.
I spilled water, and when I went to move it, I pulled something.
I'm gonna try that.
And plus, it's actually really easy and stretchy, and it doesn't break over. So it's really good. Yeah. Oh, I see. It's on some of them. And we like that.
Really just make you sit here.
Yep. Yep. Isn't it him? Isn't it him? Yeah. So let's go.
You handle taxes. Done taxes by
Okay. Let's go back to our meeting. Senior development.
Yep.
Can you start with us a little now?
Yeah, the applicant should be here soon. We do have our traffic engineer from Creighton Manning here, and Jim Bacon is another attorney working with us. He's here too. Alan, I don't know how you want to, if you want to pick up, I mean, we've been a while since we were before the board. We've submitted
Well, we're all
a bunch
kind
of
of,
studies. you know.
yeah, we don't really have nothing to go by.
Yeah. I don't know if Alan wants to
Want
give
me to
you.
give you like an overview?
Yeah, maybe
What it
that's,
is?
yeah,
Okay.
until the clients get here and then.
So, in June of.
And by the way, my apologies for them not being here, so
You're not paying enough.
sorry. I'm not paying them any.
So, in June of 2018, this application was presented to the Town of Harley Planning Board. The applicant is Cedar East Development LLC, doing business as Cedar Apartments, and they're seeking site plan and special permit approval to establish 46 dwelling units as an adaptive reuse of the existing West Hurley Elementary School, which is situated on 34 acres on the southerly side of Cedar Street. Multifamily apartments are a conditional use within the R1, R2 residential zoning districts, which is contingent upon securing a site plan and special use permit in accordance with the prescribed provisions of section 21040 and 21041 of the Town Code. As the application moves forward, it will require referral to the Ulster County Planning Board. And for this evening, we have this scheduled for discussion purposes. I'm just going to back up. When this application first appeared before the planning board declared its intent to be the lead agency, circulated said notice of its intent, and is now the designated lead agency for the seeker review. It was classified as an unlisted action, and
No, it's
The type 1.
classified as type 1.
It could be unlisted, I think you went through, but it's classified as a
Yeah,
type 1 for this.
classified as type
we're
1.
treating it as type 1
Type
now,
1?
too. We use the long form. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that was confusing me as well.
That, all right, so,
But it could be unlisted.
okay. So type, all right, seeker type 1 in action.
I'm sorry, what are you looking at up here? It doesn't look like the most recent information on this.
Plan review you sent me today, Alan?
Yeah, this is,
What's out of
just ended up this afternoon. So,
Alan, we're treating it as type 1. We've used the long form EAF. It could technically qualify as unlisted, but we're just following all the procedures.
No,
for type
it's a type 1.
Can I,
what is the?
could I
type
just say
threshold
that this is
that's
not a
exceeded?
public hearing?
No, it's not.
So can you present our case, please?
All right. I just gotta go back and we'll have to check how the circulation was noticed, whether it was noticed.
It was noticed, it was, the lead agency notice says, projects designated as an unlisted action pursuant to 6 MY CRR Part 617.4. However, the applicant has elected to voluntarily follow all seeker coordinated review procedures governing type 1 action. Accordingly, the lead agency concurs that type 1 action status shall be conferred for review purposes under seeker.
Here, an extra. Right here. Could you please pass that over? Second paragraph, I think it was,
Yeah.
specifies that. Okay.
So it's the applicant's, I got it. So we're treating it as a type 1 action.
Correct.
The applicant has recently submitted a traffic information letter. We're gonna wait for the, traffic engineer to discuss that. There was a threatened and endangered species habitat suitability assessment report dated September 28th, 2018. That, identified 3 species as having potential habitat on the site, based on the AF mapper. That was the Indiana bat, long-eared bat, and bob turtle. Habitat suitability assessment found habitat for the bats, did not find it for the bob turtle, and the applicants are proposing to follow New York State DEC, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service protocol for tree clearing as a condition of any approvals that may be granted, and notes would be provided on the plan set. Applicant has also, since their last appearance before the planning board, completed a final aquifer testing report, which was prepared by Miller Hydrological, dated May of 2019. I have not reviewed that report, and we will request the planning board refer that to the town designated engineers, Mayor Larios, for their review and recommendations. My notes should just be where I had unlisted action. Any reference to unlisted action should be type 1. And once the applicant has made their presentation this evening, the board will need to look at the materials that have been submitted, determine whether there's sufficient information available that it needs to make its determination of significance, and then recommend that the work through EAF Part 2 at your next meeting to help you make that determination. So that's kind of where we are. And I would turn it over to the applicant's professionals to kind of bring us up to where the project is at this point.
Yeah, I think probably the best thing to do would be to have the Creighton Manning make a presentation first until
Okay.
Rich Pretorius can get here, and then we'll go through some of the other documents.
Your name, sir?
I'm Jesse Vogel. I'm a transportation planner with Creighton Engineering. Happy to give the traffic study.
See you on this. You didn't get that, that's in there,
Sir, do you have another copy? Two more.
I have 5 copies with me, and then my copy that I can speak to. But we might be bringing a couple additional ones.
Well, we have 7 board members and our secretary also.
Okay.
right? Did I get that digitally? I haven't got it.
And our code enforcement officer.
Yeah, we can submit that digitally.
I didn't get it yet though, right?
Okay, I don't believe it's been submitted.
I didn't think so, okay. Okay.
Rick, do you have any more traffic reports on it?
I do.
There we go.
Are we up already? It said 8:30.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
moving over.
All I printed was the important stuff.
The board.
Who else needed one?
Very good.
Go ahead.
So at a high level, we conducted a traffic study for the development. We looked at 2 intersections where we felt that traffic impacts would be experienced. That would be at Wall Street and Route 28 and on Cedar Street and Route 375. So we conducted traffic counts there in June during the AM period from 7 to 9 a.m. and also the afternoon peak period from 4 to 6 p.m. Typically the peak hours that coincide with peak street traffic and peak traffic that the site would generate. We identified peak hours.
Speak up just a little bit louder.
Yeah, so we identified the peak hours for the morning peak hour is 8 a.m. and then the afternoon peak hour is 4:15, 4:30 p.m. And so then we conducted existing conditions analysis at those 2 intersections to determine how they operate. Following that, we did trip generation for the proposed development using the ITE standard for multi-use apartments. To determine the number of trips, the total number of peak hour trips in the morning is expected to be 23 trips, and in the evening peak hour would be 30 peak hour trips. Those trips are then distributed through the network and applied to those two intersections. The level of service analysis was completed. Currently, the Route 28 and Route 375 mainline traffic turning left onto those streets operate at level of service A. At both intersections, Wall Street operates at level of service C, and Cedar Street operates at level of service B. Level of service being a letter grade to kind of determine how traffic flows. We found that after applying the growth rate to the existing conditions out there to compare what traffic would be without the development, and then after distributing the trips that the development would add to the network, that there would be approximately 1 second of overall delay increase as a result of the development. No change to any of those letter grade level of services.
Jesse, what's the growth factor?
Yep, so the growth factor, we did a regression analysis on both of the state routes that showed that traffic has actually been declining in the area. However, to provide a conservative estimate, we applied a 2% growth rate for 1 year to the 2020 build year.
We were just handed these, so it takes a little bit of time to figure out what you're trying to say.
Yep.
Where are you judging this traffic coming in and out of? What actual spot?
Correct. So the two intersections that were studied would be Wall Street and Route 28 as one point of entrance into the neighborhood and to the site, and then the other one would be on Cedar Street and Route 375 as the other point of access to the site.
I have pointers here if you need one for any explanation.
There is also on the very front page of the traffic study, the project location figure that might help to illustrate the two intersections.
Excuse me, could you stand on the other side of that screen? We could get a better view. Thank you.
The estimated trips when school was in session, was that provided by the school district?
That was calculated based on the ITE land use code for the square footage of the school. So based on the square footage of the school, that would be the estimated number of trips.
So where was the number for projected trips with the build out of 46 units? How was that figure derived?
Yep, so if you look at table 1, that's the trip generation summary. So that was calculated based on the ITE land use code. So for multi-family low-rise apartment building, for 46 units, that would be a total of 23 trips in the morning peak. And then the IT also provides directional distribution, which is how that entering and exiting was determined. Same for the PM peak. And then those trips were distributed through the traffic network based on existing assumed travel patterns. And so I believe figure 4 attached in the report would show what those percentages are. Apologize, it's figure.
That's absurd.
No, I'm reading.
Yep, figure 3 has the percentages on the top and then the actual trip assignment.
This strikes me as the number surprisingly low.
Yeah. I think.
School was a little high too. I mean, the school, did you find out how many buses they ran in and out of there on a day?
We didn't have that information.
Eight.
You said before you estimated it?
8.
So the school is based on the square footage for the building that size, and
But that school was never full after a while.
correct. So
It was never full when it was full.
Never 359 trips.
So the other thing that we did look at was for the number of students. We heard that there were 166 students the year that the school closed, and that there had been higher enrollment previously, but that had declined. And so those trip generation numbers for the AM peak hour would be about 111 trips total, and in the evening peak hour, 28 trips total. Keep in mind that is the one peak hour between 4 to 6 p.m. period. Now schools, the AM peak hour typically coincides with street traffic, which is why that 111 number is higher than in the PM. Where if a school dismisses at 3, that traffic wouldn't be during the 4 to 6 p.m. hour.
There's always traffic. There's always traffic.
Yeah.
Always.
Stake your reputation on people.
Now, when you say trips, are you counting each individual vehicle that's in and out of there?
Yeah, so trip would be correct, and so entering and exiting. So if one vehicle enters the site, that's one trip, and if that same vehicle exits, that's a second trip.
Right.
Correct.
So then you have to come up with 359, you're telling 100 and something buses ran in and out of there.
Right, and so 359 is based on the square footage, and that is ITE data that's collected nationwide.
Well, I understand, I ran a school.
Nonsense.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So
I can tell you,
So 46 apartments, and these people work for a living, I would take it. So they gotta go to and from work, and most,
Correct, and I think an important thing to keep in mind is that this is just the peak hour trip. So there's no guarantee that all 46 apartments would empty at the exact same time within the same hour. So,
well, if they're all working people, the peak hour would be before 8 o'clock probably.
well, some people start work at 7, others people start work at 9.
But still, you have, it says, it's based on the kind you did from 7 to 9 for the morning. It just strikes me as really remarkably low. 18 exits, 46. Husband, wife, then you're looking at 92 people. Even if half of them work and 80% of those work and leave at 7 to 9, you're still almost doubling that number. And in a realistic world, I mean, this is based on generic nationwide standards. I just don't think it's realistic in this instance. So I think it's discussion purposes. It's inordinately low.
How does this work now? We get this to our engineers.
Well, the county transportation safety board is coming out.
Oh, yeah. And we need some expert advice for the town, from the town.
So Dennis Lerner's office is going to review this as well, assuming relative to the trip generation and traffic.
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's about all you got to say on this?
Happy to answer any other questions.
Well, yeah, we probably have a lot of them, but we gotta read this thing.
Yeah, this is my first perusal of it.
You know, when you hand this 20 pages here, of, you spent 6 months doing this, whatever.
Well, Carl, we'll have, if Dennis wants to, you can contact Jesse and talk to,
Oh, that will
Jesse
happen.
direct.
Yeah, our town engineers will contact him and we'll set it up with them. Let me ask you, have you started an escrow account for this project?
Did we start an escrow account yet?
Yes.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's cool.
$5,100.
5,000 to start? Yeah, well, that'll do it. Okay,
Yeah, 5,100 we got.
yeah. We just, we gotta keep up on that and keep the right people working on this and get the right answers.
You want Rich to, I think maybe we'll have Rich make a presentation of
Okay.
the other reports. I will just note quickly the Ecological Solutions report, which was touched on briefly already by Alan, is, that's Mike Nowicki's Endangered Threatened Species report. It pretty much speaks for itself. That one's, I think, fairly easy to follow. But I think Rich should talk about the other issues too, that we have, especially the water report. So.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm a fast learner.
You want a pointer there, Rich?
Besides this,
There's a couple right there.
You said that digitally as well as the manuals, right? You push the red button.
okay, don't point it at any flames,
Do
right?
you want the site? Don't win the eyes.
No.
Do you want,
Or cat.
do you want the site plan up or the actual? What works for you the best?
This one's a little, I need a little bit more here, so. Yeah, I can use this.
You can use this?
Yeah. Okay. Basically, what I'm going to talk about is the water supply for the project. The design flow for the project is 5,100 gallons per day, which, if you divide it out into minutes, that's 3.5 gallons a minute. The health department regulations require that we have 2 wells on the property that supply twice the average daily flow, which is 7 gallons per minute, with the largest producing well out of service. So basically that means we need 2 wells over 7 gallons per minute on site. The testing protocol from New York State is that we test over a 24-hour period minimum, with a minimum of 8 hours of stabilized drawdown. We drilled, okay, please, I need to move it this way. Sorry. I'm going to go over right about there. So the school had 3 wells on the property. The well that was here by the pump house, we couldn't get into. The well that is being used right now to supply the school is in this corner right here. The 3rd well was under the porch.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, well, let me go.
That's all right, I can describe it. The old school building right here, the 3rd well was under this roof in the porch in the basement. This well was not functional. This is the one they're using, and the 3rd one out here we couldn't get into. And the school wasn't using either one of the other 2 wells either. So in order to meet the state requirements, we drilled a new well, which is approximately 100 feet from that tennis court right there, where there's the clearing in the trees. So then what we did was we tested the old well, we'll call the existing well, for 24 hours with a yield of 10.5 gallons per day over that stabilized drawdown period, while monitoring wells in the adjacent development. And then we pumped the new well for 72-hour drawdown period with the 6-hour stabilized drawdown. And this one stabilized at 8.5 gallons a minute. So what we have is 2 wells that exceed the requirements for the New York State Department of Health water supply for this project, and we did not have an appreciable effect on the adjoining wells with drawdown. We then did it.
You did
Come in,
ours.
come on up.
You did still have an appreciable effect on the wells.
We gotta let him finish what he's saying.
Okay,
You
as
can't-
long as there's a
To
public.
my knowledge, there was only one well that was monitored that we measured the drawdown on, and I think it was between 3 and 5 feet of drawdown. So I don't know whose address or what's going on, but we'll figure that out. So we then did the full Part 5 water quality testing on both the wells, and I was pleasantly surprised that the water quality was very good out there. The school had installed a new water treatment system in this building right here to address a corrosive problem that they had with the plumbing. And I'm not sure why they had that problem, but since we will not be using copper plumbing, we'll be replacing all the piping in both buildings, we may not need the treatment system that's in this building right now. So what I've addressed so far is the requirements for the wells, the actual testing that we did on the wells, both quantity and quality. So at this point, I think I'm ready for questions.